Well, threadbare with patches and pain from cuts that came, mistakes been made. Oh, well, life looks good to you, the highlights pristine, but you only know what you see. Oh, holds together, feels like it all holds together, all holds together with spit and safety pins. Ragamuffins' robes or emperor's new clothes. Is anything there at all? Well, I know you and you know me. We've been living our lives so carefully. Oh, trying to hold it all together. Feels like it all holds together. All holds together with spit and safety pins. At the end of your rope, on the edge of a blade, hold it together. Who wants to live that way? Rather burst at the seams and go out in a blaze, but it's just another day. have to feel like this when you're standing in the wind, like it all holds together with spinning safety pins. If you return to your heavy loads, pretending stones are worth their weight in gold, the hurried hustle helps avoid the slow. When it's what you really need, you know it's easy and hard feeling this way, breaking your back and seeing no change. It's just what we do, putting all that on you, grinding away like we're insane. But what can't be done with a little bit of love? It could even be fun, the falling and the getting up, with all the hard things that you've been thinking of. We can, say it with me, oh we can, with a little bit of love. Sometimes it all comes crashing down, another wave and you feel you'll surely drown. You didn't think to look for it, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks. So what do? You can't see a way through. You're feeling alone and like you should have known. That's how it begins, and then you're caught in the spin. And let the breath in and say it again. What can't be done with a little bit of love? It could even be fun, the falling and the getting up, with all the hard things that you've been thinking of. We can, say it with me, oh we can, with a little bit of love. And love is all around you, even if it's hard to see. You can't live without it, it's like the air we breathe. Love is flowing through you, even if you don't believe. Generous and patient, simply asking you and me. What can't be done with a little bit of love? It could even be fun, the falling and the getting up, with all the hard things that you've been thinking of. We can, say it with me, oh we can, 'cause what can't be done with a little bit of love? It could even be fun, the falling and the getting up, with all the hard things that you've been thinking of. We can, say it with me, oh we can, with a little bit of love, with a little bit of love. This road end, I forget why we came this way again. See, I never see the signs when we're on the road. If we're gonna keep on moving, we gotta keep our heads up. We go so fast, we don't know where we've been, but we won't make the edge unless we feel it in our bones. With our eyes closed and a sweet breath, slow as fast, fast as slow. This road, I have seen its end, like a dream, time and time again. I never see the signs when we're on the road. If we're gonna keep on moving, we gotta keep our heads up. We go so fast, we don't know where we've been, but we won't make the edge unless we feel it in our bones. With our eyes closed and a sweet breath, slow as fast, fast as slow. Sleeping in the backseat, rest your weary head against the door. To remember the softness of your bed anymore. Lights are drifting past, you don't know where you've been or where you are. If we're gonna keep on moving, gotta keep our heads up. If we're gonna keep on moving, we gotta keep our heads up. We go so fast, we don't know where we've been, but we won't make the edge unless we feel it in our bones. With our eyes closed and a sweet breath, slow as fast, fast as slow.
Woohoo! Thank you, band! Can we give the band a big round of applause? Wow! Band! Oh, wait. What? What's going on? Where's the band? Okay, I'm Melissa, Welcome Fabric, and I have the distinct, wonderful honor to get to introduce you to Fia Marie Metz, who is the new human who gets to live with Jen. Is there one of Chris, too? We just saw him. Okay. You know that guy. So, welcome, Fia. Can we just all holler like that direction? We're going to say, welcome, Fia. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Welcome, Fia. All right. And welcome to you, all of you, who, like me, do not have a cabin. So we're here being cozy. And welcome live streamers. Maybe you're live streaming from a cabin or from home today, so welcome to you as well. We are in the midst of our conversation about cease and resist. It's going to be a good day for that. Couple logistics here, just a reminder. Thanks to Ab and Liv who made the coffee this morning and have it all set up. Tea over there anytime. Go warm up your coffee and tea. There's a great water fountain, bathrooms down the hallway, and the one with the changing table is and gender neutral and wheelchair accessible is following signs past that. So you maybe have heard that before, but it's good to know for when someone new comes and they're looking for where to change a diaper or something like that. So yeah, if you didn't get a Sunday paper yet, make sure to get one of those. There's a lot of good places to engage your brain on the back today so that you leave with some of your own thoughts having, started getting from your head down onto the paper and into your life this week. So use it for that. It's not there for you to just have rules to follow and be a good student. But if that's motivating for you, Ian will tell you all the answers later. So, good. So, like I said, I'm Melissa, and this weekend my college roommate was visiting from New York, and we went to Sea Salt, which is right by Minnehaha Falls, and we were catching up, after 20 years. She asked, what do you do for fun, and what do you do for work, and all that stuff, and I shared that I work with a community called Fabric, and we're actually going to meet all summer, right over there at that bandstand, and she asked, what is that about? What do you do? And she comes, from a non-religious background and married someone who's Orthodox, and so has a really interesting, experience with religion. But she and her sister, I just said, it's a place for sustained in real life community. And I thought, that is a really big deal, actually. So to have in real life community, there's a lot of great stuff out there on the internet to learn about and things to practice, and all of those podcasters are trying to make community. They're join our community and be a part of a virtual group, but it's so different to have real bodies to actually know you and to see you and to practice with, and to do that over time, so that, you miss 1 week because you're at your cabin, like today, but then you're going to be back the next week or in your group, and there's just this steady, sustained way to connect. So thank you for being that, and for helping that be a reality for more and more people. That's what I think is so valuable about all of this. All right, last thing for now is just this guy here. Pull out the communication card and just get your pen rolling on that. You can make a smiley face, a joke, and then maybe share a thought from the morning that you're going to take away. Something you just really appreciated. Maybe it's how good the coffee was, or a story that Ian shares today, or something you saw the kids really lighting up about, or I don't know what it is, but just that's kind of neat to hear that kind of positive feedback from all of you, as well as your prayers, what's going on in your life, ideas, and other special announcements, whatever you want to share with us. So that's what that's for. If you're tuning in online, we have a virtual form of that. Just go under Contact up on the website. All right, so we're talking about this idea of ceasing and resisting. Remembering that this rhythm of life, it's not just all work. It needs to include some rest in there. And today we're exploring one of the things that comes from that stopping every once in a while is that we might be restored. What does restored mean? I can look up videos on how to restore just about anything, right, on YouTube. But, from old cars to pieces of furniture, what about me? How do I get restored? I know if you look on Facebook, Jeanette, coincidentally, where are you? You just posted like a whole thing about this from the restoration in progress signs that you see at the park. So what does that look like for us? And I think there might be a critter who can help us. So let's hear from Noah the sloth.
Good morning, Fabric. I am Noah the sloth. I bet you have been wondering about my name.
It is a little unusual for you to imagine, I'm sure. But for a sloth, it's a perfect name. Noach is a Hebrew word which means to rest. Sloths are excellent resters. So it seems like a perfect name for me. Now, about this word restore. It means to bring back or return to an original state, especially after something or someone has been run down or worn out. Take it from me, restoring oneself is very important, and you can take a lesson or two about that from our friends in the forest and in the pond. Today, our field reporter Thea is on location at Wood Lake Nature Center to report on this idea of restoring ourselves.
Hey ho, Thea here, reporting for Fab TV. I'm on location at Wood Lake Nature Center, right on the heart of Richfield, Minnesota. And I'm here to investigate more about the idea of restoring. Are you ready to come along? Let's go. Hello, can you tell me your name and what you do at the Nature Center?
Of course. My name is Jen, and I'm one of the naturalists here, so I teach. And this is Tiny Tim, one of our ambassadors who helps me with teaching.
Awesome. I have a few questions for you regarding turtles, if you don't mind. First, have you ever seen any turtles laying around on logs? Why are they doing that?
Absolutely. That is a great question. So whenever you're outside here at Wood Lake, you can see dozens of turtles laying around, and they are basking.
I love the word basking. It sounds quite lovely. I have a follow-up question. Why do turtles bask, and why sometimes are there so many on one log?
Those are great questions. Turtles bask because they're what we call ectothermic, meaning they can't control their body temperature. They're the same temperature as whatever is around them. So if they are cold, they need to go somewhere to warm up. Basking lets them heat up so they have enough energy. You find a lot of them on the same log or in the same spot because that's the prime location. It's the perfect spot for them. And even though they're not social, they don't make friends as far as we know, you can find dozens of them in that perfect spot to bask.
Fascinating. Who knew turtles could be so wise? That brings up another question. What if turtles forgot to bask and got too busy just swimming around?
So what would happen is that they would get too cold. Their body temperature would drop, and as it drops, their metabolism slows down. So their digestion would slow, their heart rate would slow, and eventually they would just get colder and colder and colder that they wouldn't be able to survive.
Whoa, that would be some turtle trouble for sure. This next question isn't really about basking, but I have been waiting to ask a turtle expert of this burning question. Do turtles really breathe through their butts?
Yes, they do. When they're diving or in the winter, they use something called cloacal respiration. And what that means is that they breathe air through their butt or their cloaca. They have two air bladders that are connected to the cloaca, and they pull oxygen out of the water when they are diving, or again in the winter, they will bury themselves in the mud, and for up to 3 months, they will breathe through their butt instead of through their mouth.
You really are a great turtle expert. Is there a way for for kids and grown-ups to come to the park and get restored?
Absolutely. We have trails all around the Nature Center where people can go on walks, they can go hiking, and enjoy everything from seeing the turtles out on the logs in the marsh to hearing birds singing in the woods, or even coming into our visitor center. It is completely free, so they can come and just enjoy nature.
What could kids do here this summer?
We actually have a lot of summer camps going on from the second week of June all the way through the end of August. So there are a lot of things that kids can do to get involved.
Thank you for your time. I feel a little more restored just being here.
Thank you.
This has been Thea with Fab TV reporting back to you.
Good morning, Fabric.
All right. Well, thank you, Thea. Thank you, Thea and Noach. Thea reporting on location about basking and breathing through your butt. Who knew what you can learn on Sunday morning? So informative. Yeah, I might have to take a trip over there to Wood Lake Nature Center. It's right in Richfield. All right, that got me thinking about where do I feel like I get that feeling of restoration, of basking? You know, what does that look like? What helps me feel restored? And so that's like a way to warm up for this message today. And I invite you now to move around if you can. Find someone that you maybe don't see as often or haven't met yet. Say hello, and maybe ask each other if you could be like a turtle and do a little basking. It might not be in a log, right? But where would it be? Where would you like to do a little basking if you got that chance? And hopefully you will. All right, so say hi and find out about the person's favorite basking spots, okay? Thanks for being here. Hey, good morning, live streamers. I see Jesse put a comment in already, it sounds like. Hi, Jesse Pearson and family, and everyone else out there watching either live or later. So glad you're connecting this way. Good morning, I'm Melissa. We're talking about this really old idea of Sabbath and ceasing and resisting and what is possible when we do that. And today we're talking about one of the things that might be possible, and that's restoration. So I'm looking forward to that. Where do you like to bask? Put it in the comments. I think you can only comment if you are logged in under your YouTube account, which is also the same as a Gmail account, FYI. And if you can't do that, you can send it on the contact card on our website if you want. But basking locations, one of my favorites is this certain beach in Tetagooch State Park up on the north shore of Lake Superior. And at this time of year or in the fall, there's really cool temperatures, but the sun is out and it warms up the rock. So I am really a lot like turtles, and I like basking on the sun-warmed rocks. So that's me. Thanks for listening. Yeah, look forward to hearing yours. Hope you can hear the buzz here this morning and get a little of this energy, and we'll hope to see you soon. All righty. Hopefully you all got some good basking ideas and can head out maybe this afternoon, find your own log to bask on. At this time, I want to invite the kids to come down here because I have a question that I want to ask before we head into the gym. So come on down, come on over. Big, little, however old is perfect. All right. So I want you just to close your eyes for a second and imagine that you're a turtle. And you are on the most perfect log and you're out in the sunshine basking. All right, you can open your eyes up and tell me, what are you thinking right now, Turtle Naomi?
I'm feeling calmer than I was before.
Calm, nice answer. Who else has a good answer? Chloe, you got one yet? Nope. Raleigh? Nope. Well, I know I watched a bunch of those turtles, and it felt so good to just take in that sunshine and that vitamin D.
I'm feeling happier.
Yeah, we feel happier after we're restored. Awesome. Well,
Safe.
Yeah. If we're restored, we're kind of in our own whole self, which makes me feel super safe. All right, well, turtles are great baskers. They know how to restore. But also, did you know that gnomes and fairies know how to restore too? They are always on the lookout for a great garden to take home in. And we are going to go in the gym and we're going to create a home, a garden for a gnome or a fairy so that they can feel restored. Does that sound fun? All right, let's go. We'll see you later.
Sig, you want to go make a gnome home? There you go. Good morning, everybody. How we all doing? Good? Energetic on a rainy morning? Yeah! Awesome. Well, we are continuing our Cease and Resist series today. We're talking a little bit about the concept of Sabbath, which of course is one of the 10 commandments we find in the Old Testament. The Hebrew Bible is given by God to Moses on Mount Sinai when all the Hebrew people were encamped around that mountain. I imagine they probably didn't have any gear quite like this, but similar. And they were kind of, in the wilderness, and they were kind of trying to figure out how do we create a community from where we were in being enslaved in Egypt, and every moment of our waking and sleeping is dictated by the sort of Pharaoh economy, and now they're in the wilderness. They're kind of like exact opposite. And so this commandment, one of the 10, is on taking Sabbath and resting and rejuvenating and all of that. And so we are defining Sabbath for this series as to cease and resist. To cease, to stop, and to resist. So one of the things, and we'll kind of get into this throughout the next many weeks too, but one of the things that we're resisting is the lie that we maybe have been told. I know I have been told. And that lie is that my worth is directly connected to my production, my productivity, how much I can accomplish. Does anybody feel that way ever? Have you heard these messages or believe them to be true about yourself? That's really hard to live with all the time, right? And so I want to name that as a lie. It's not entirely true, and it's something that in this heavy backpack that I'm carrying with me all the time. This attitude of, like, I am what I produce. I am only worth what I'm worth because of the work I do, or because of what I make, or how much I get done, the stuff that I get done on my checklist. Like the days when I have a checklist, a to-do list, when I actually take the time to actually write it out with little boxes, and I check all of them, and all the check boxes are done. That moment, that last checkbox, gosh, that feels good, doesn't it? And then I go to bed, and I think about all the check boxes that I missed, that even writing down. I think about tomorrow's to-do list, And this is stuff that we carry in our packs every day. So a big part of what we're talking about is that we do have packs. We do have packs, and we carry all sorts of stuff, these attitudes, our identities, the roles we play in places of work and in our families, and all of that. And what we carry isn't necessarily bad, right? Like the work we do isn't bad. The responsibilities we have within our communities and families, those things aren't bad. But what we're trying to say is that they don't need to be carried all the time. They don't need to be carried all the time. And so one of the fill-ins you're going to have on the back of your paper, we added from last week a little bit. But when we talk about Sabbath, we're not talking about adding more to our packs. This is something that I've kind of struggled with in my thinking about rest and Sabbath is that on top of all the responsibilities, on top of the checklists and the to-do lists and the responsibilities I feel, now I also have to add on like self-care practices, and I have to add on, whatever that is that's going to help me rest. I have to add it on, and now it just feels like a should. Now it feels heavy. Feels like a burden. So when we talk about Sabbath, it isn't about adding more to the pack, but it's also not necessarily about taking something out of the pack either. What we're talking about is putting the pack down. To say, the work is important, my responsibilities matter, all of that, but I deserve to put this down. It deserves to be put down, even just for a time. So I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to know and I'm going to trust that I can pick it back up. And I'm going to pick it back up. But for a time, it's set down, and my shoulders go down from my earlobes, and my tongue falls from the roof of my mouth, right? I feel grounded a little more. So as I've been talking about this Sabbath concept with many of you, with my friends, with family, some of the immediate feedback I get are kind of like laughter or scoffs, like eye rolls, like, oh yeah, cute. Like, I get the concept of Sabbath, and I get that it's important, and that people should do that, right? But the feedback I get almost immediately is like, I get the value of this, but there's something about my life and my situation that is so special that I'm exempt from this, or I can't afford this, right? And yeah, like I have all these responsibilities. I'm a parent, like this is me. I'm a parent. Have at it, Sabbath, everybody else. I'm a parent. Like what, my job, I have demands of me in my work or in my schooling or in my, like kids. I feel like kids, teenagers understand this. College students understand this too. Like, what time is yours, right? But what I'd like to say is like to that, I've heard, I can't really rest until those check boxes are ticked off, right? I can't actually do it until I do all the work it's going to take to get me to rest. And my question for you is, how often are all the check boxes ticked off? No? Never. You said it. Like, there's always more to do. We can find ways to occupy our time. So what I'm saying is, because the answer to that really is never, like, there's always stuff to do. There's always stuff in our packs that will demand us, ask us to keep wearing them. Because of that reality, what I'm saying is, we just have to do it, I think. I think this is just something for me that I perceive in my life. I have to put it down. And if I have to do a little work to do that, to get myself ready to do that, if I have to communicate with somebody and say, look, I need 5 minutes just to go rest, I got to do that, right? It's part of sort of my community understanding of what I need. So again, my sort of pitching mound here, what I'm lobbing at you is just things that I'm thinking about, things that I believe, and you can choose to swing at them or not. But when we're talking about sort of like when I think about Sabbath, I'm thinking kind of like biblical, I'm thinking about the 10 Commandments, I'm thinking about Moses and the Israelites and about God and about like all that. And so my sort of pitching mound here is that when we're talking about Sabbath, when we're talking about this God and these stories that we're going to get into again today, this God is primarily concerned with liberation and wholeness, as opposed to the sort of human tendency to try to acquire or hoard or coerce acquisition of like material goods or of prosperity. And so we'll expand on that a little bit today, because what we're talking about today is one of the possibilities of Sabbath, of rest, of actually putting our packs down and blessing it and saying, I'll pick you back up in a little bit, but you just sit right here for now. One of the possibilities is restoration. And what we're resisting is any of the messages that we might hear or experience that prevents us from being able to participate in this kind of rest, in this Sabbath, in ways that feel to us free and truly restorative. So we're going to look at the story in Leviticus. Leviticus is one of the Old Testament Hebrew Bible books right after the Exodus story that we talked about last week, where the Israelites were freed from their enslavement. And in Leviticus, it's sort of known as a book full of rules, like ordinances and laws and rules that God gives to Israel through Moses while they're all encamped at Mount Sinai. And they're kind of like guidelines for living in a way that was markedly different from kind of society around them. Like a culture that demanded more, a culture that valued a person not for their personhood, but for their productivity. And so in this book of Leviticus, the story goes toward the end of the book that God sort of is like talking somehow to Moses. You have to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit to like just get the good nugget out of this. But like God is speaking to Moses and is sort of expanding on the seemingly simple commandment, the fourth commandment, to observe the Sabbath and keep it holy, to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. And so the reading goes, let's go to the previous one. There's one more you can read along with me. There we go. The Lord said to Moses on Mount Sinai, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, once you enter the land that I'm giving you, the land must celebrate a Sabbath rest. You will plant your fields for 6 years and prune your vineyards and gather their crops for 6 years. But in the 7th year, the land will have a special Sabbath rest. You must not plant your fields or prune your vineyards. You must not harvest the secondary growth of your produce or gather the grapes of your freely growing vines. It will be a year of special rest for the land. Whatever the land produces during its Sabbath will be your food, for you, for your servants, for your hired laborers, for the foreign guests who live with you, as well as for your livestock and for all the wild animals that live among you. All of the land's produce can be eaten." So this is from kind of the end of the book of Leviticus, but it's expanding this idea. Last week what we were talking about is like, in the sort of biblical story, it's like a 7-day thing of creation, and on the 7th day is rest. And so we find that like we have an affinity to or a relationship to this like God that rests. And what this is doing is saying, not just you once a week, but the land needs to rest. The land itself needs to not be worked upon. And so the instruction is to not work upon the earth. So no planting or pruning. Give both the land and the people around you a break, the animals too. Give it all a break. Let it all go a little wild, right? And see what happens. Eat what's produced naturally. Share it broadly with anything or anybody that has hunger. It's kind of like returning to a former way of being. It's almost kind of primitive, right? To let the land go fallow and to let ourselves go a little wild too. And this is pretty countercultural stuff, in my thinking. It's kind of a direction toward what we're resisting in this practice of Sabbath. Like, we don't have to just keep working. Before the gathering today, I was talking to CJ, who spent time in Wisconsin in the past on a farm, and we're talking about how this is actually still a practice among agrarian society, right? Like, you let the land go a little wild. You move crops. You let the soil restore, because there are certain plants like corn. If you just plant corn over and over and over, it's going to take the nitrogen right out and the soil's not going to be healthy. This is really about restoration. And it's a justice issue too, I think. Walter Brueggemann is an author who wrote this book called Sabbath as Resistance, saying no to the culture of now. It's heavily influenced my thinking on Sabbath. But what he wrote in regard to this passage that we just read, that Sabbath is in the context of the productive food-producing creation system in which human beings must participate. They must participate, but they also ought to trust the land, creation, enough to rest. Even in the busy agricultural seasons of sowing and reaping, human life is to conform to rhythms of creation. The rhythms of creation. And when human people are in sync with that, with those rhythms, they can rest and be free from anxiety. So I'll say that our work, whatever your work is, right? It's important and it's necessary, but we also have the opportunity with Sabbath practices to learn to trust that what we need will be provided. That the land, the earth, all that is connected and will provide. Whatever that need is for you, Sabbath practice might help you recognize that. So, kind of part 2 of this message is about being wild things. I like Max from Where the Wild Things Are. It's one of my favorite books ever written. So, rewilding. Have you ever heard of rewilding before? This is going to be a theme. I think it's a theme for camp this summer, rewilding. So I'm really excited to see what the kids look and sound like when they come back from camp. It's going to be great. But rewilding is an apparently sort of newish, progressive approach to conservation in which we allow nature to take care of itself, right? You let the land go. See what happens, right? Maybe we introduce something to the land, like native plants or native wildlife or whatever, but we let it go. We let the nature take care of itself. This approach notices to conservation, notices the ways that when left fallow, the Earth's natural processes will continue to shape the land and water. It'll repair damaged ecosystems and restore degraded landscapes. Through the process of rewilding, wildlife's natural rhythms create wider and more diverse ecosystems. One thing I notice when I walk around my neighborhood is the way that humanity has sort of entered into partnership with Kentucky bluegrass. We human beings enter into relationships with desired plants and crops, right? And we do the work of eliminating competition. And what is so beautiful about the Earth's rhythm and process is that it sustains a naturally diverse, biodiverse ecosystem. And so this rewilding approach is really about that, letting the diversity take over and create and not just keep pruning. I have a hydrangea bush that was growing above our house. It was huge. And last year I cut it down to the ground. I kept pruning it and trying to shape it and making it look pretty or something. I don't know. And it was it just kept going. And I thought, well, if I just go snip at the ground, it'll just be this nice little thing, and then I'll really master this. I haven't. It's coming back, and it's taking this weird shape, and it's just so beautiful and lovely. I'm just going to leave it. It's great. Go wild, yard. I think when we, just like rewilding the earth, I think when we are able to slow down and stop and bask on a log like Tiny Tim, thank you, Thea, and let the rewilding process happen, I really wonder what we would experience when nature, like even our nature, is allowed to be wild once again. The restoration that can happen when people practice Sabbath rest is just such a profound and simple reality, natural reality. The fact that it feels so countercultural, this practice, and so unnatural to us probably has a lot to do with the ways we've believed the lies about our value and worth. It probably has a lot to do with the fact that we don't always give ourselves the chance to take that pack off and to say, you're going to be here for a little bit, buddy. I need to figure me out for a second without you. I think there's a connection there. And when I take the pack off, and when I'm able to kind of observe nature in all of its natural wildness, we can see that the earth has a way that it wants to be. There are rhythms that it wants to dance in. And there are ways that we see the earth itself and kind of nature reacting against human interference. And just like nature, just like the earth, there's a rhythm of rest and activation and development that our own bodies and our minds want to move with. And I think when we don't allow that space for identifying those rhythms of rest and activation, I think eventually, at least my experience is, my body and or my mind will demand it of me, right? And that doesn't usually feel healthy. Usually for me, that looks like sickness. Like my body will do some weird things. My mind will do some weird things. I go into isolation. I go into, some weird cold or, something will happen and my body and my mind are demanding this rest, demanding me to get back into a healthier rhythm of being. And so to adapt our question from last week, the question that Heidi's brought up to our staff, which was last week, who would I be if I really knew how to rest? An adaptation of our question for today is, who would I be if I felt truly restored? So again, we have our sort of Caribou Coffee board over here with that question. We'd love to hear from you both there and maybe even in an audio clip to send to us so we can put it in our podcast for June 23rd. But that question is so worth pondering. Who would we be if we knew how to rest? If we felt truly restored, who would we be? And so I want to invite you to think with me about where have you seen the effects of true restoration and letting ourselves and the land be a little wild? Have you seen the effects of this anywhere? I know that Boundary Waters, yeah, protected land, right? Yeah. It burns and then it's beautiful. Oh, isn't that the truth? Yeah, there's like a pattern of destruction and fire and then new growth and beauty and balance in protected spaces like that. And I think of similarly like nature preserves, right? Where you can go and you can move from like our sort of controlled paved spaces and then go a couple blocks over and you find a nature preserve and all of a sudden you see these wild creatures that belong here, native to this land and place. Species that are older than humanity itself. During COVID, like the initial shutdown, do you remember hearing these stories about like the traffic smog was gone, the pollution was going down, and all of a sudden these species of hawks and falcons and birds that hadn't been in Minneapolis for decades and decades and decades, within months they were back. There was a guy walking down, I live in St. Louis Park, there was a guy walking down, he looked like he was maybe like for National Geographic, he had a telescopic lens, like Jeanette, like looked like Jeanette walking around. And I chased him down and I was like, what are you doing? Like taking pictures of like wild suburbia. And he was like, no, there's these hawks, you can hear them, listen. We sat and listened. Lo and behold, seconds later, there's this call of a hawk species or something, falcon, some bird of prey, and it was back for the first time in ever, and so he was getting pictures of it, and it was a moment of celebration and restoration. I think of like native gardens. In our front yard, Rachel and I have made a rain garden with like native Minnesota plants, and we let our lawn go for May. We participated in No Mow May. Weird flex. But yesterday we were hosting a party today, and we needed grassy space for the kids, and so I like felt almost weepy as I'm like mowing down the grass, and it's like blowing in the breeze and dancing, and I'm just like, I'm sorry. And then like the last swipe right next to the rain garden, I'm looking down at the last bits of dancing grass. And out pops from underneath the lawnmower, right in front of my feet, a toad, flat on the ground, eyes huge, looking up at me like, what just happened? And it scurried into the rain garden, and I hope it just lives there happily for the rest of its little life. But I felt so guilty. Oh. I want to share with you, as we sort of wrap up this time on restoration, a poem by, I've shared my love of Wendell Berry with you before, but a poem by Wendell Berry. It's called The Wild Geese. Mary Oliver also has a poem called Wild Geese. You should read it. I'm not going to today. But The Wild Geese is a poem. I'm going to read through this twice. And while I do, there will be pictures up on the screen of sort of nature doing restoration. Nature taking over the places that humanity has tried to control with a firm grip. Okay? So I'm going to read through this poem twice for you to listen to, because I think it's just beautiful. And I hope it cracks open for you the possibility of rest and stopping and restoration. So, The Wild Geese by Wendell Berry. Horseback on Sunday morning, harvest over. We taste persimmon and wild grape, sharp, sweet of summer's end. In time's maze over fall fields, we name names that went west from here. Names that rest on graves. We open a persimmon seed to find the tree that stands in promise, pale in the seed's marrow. Geese appear high over us, pass, and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, holds them to their way, clear. In the ancient faith, what we need is here. And we pray not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye clear. What we need is here. Once again, The Wild Geese. Horseback on Sunday morning. Harvest over, we taste persimmon and wild grape, sharp, sweet of summer's end. In time's maze over fall fields, we name names that went west from here, names that rest on graves. We open a persimmon seed to find the tree that stands in promise, pale in the seed's marrow. Geese appear high over us, pass and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, holds them to their way, clear in the ancient faith. What we need is here. And we pray not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye clear. What we need is here. And so, Fabric, friends, with Wendell Berry, we too pray, I think, to be quiet in heart and in the eye clear, trusting that what we need is available to us, trusting that we get to participate in the natural rhythms of the earth and of our inner landscape of being, trusting that restoration is possible and right below the surface. Trusting that we can put down our pack for a time and that it will be there, ready to be picked up again when we're ready and restored. May it be so. This is usually where I say, take it away, band. And we will take it away to the screen. But if you have already filled out your communication card, or if you haven't, I'm going to stall for you. You can take a second to do that. And we will collect those. I think the baskets are not out right now. Oh, okay. Melissa's grabbing them. Great. So those will come. Thank you for your support of one another and of this community in all the ways that you tend to it and help one another to rest, to be restored. We hope that this is a place that and a gathering time that serves you well. And so with that, take it away, Digital Chris.
Black or white, left or right, no third way that we could try. There is an answer we can find. Ooh. Cut and dried, it's already decided. A straight silver shot when you find it. I should have found that answer by now. Ooh. Ooh. When you're sick and tired of the fight, can't seem to align with the two sides. There is something like an answer you can find. Ooh. Ooh. See, I've been around each and every bend, looking for the start and the end. I've sampled every shallow, brackish bog. Ooh. Ooh. There's gotta be a deeper stream, a better way to be. Waking up from our American dreams. There is a power in the flood that washes over me. But it's been too long since I drank from that deep, deep stream. Can't use a cup that's already filled, so pour it out and make it helpful. You might hear that stream, you never know. Bottle up the breeze. It's not real, it's not wild and free. It's not for you to keep. Oh. What you need is already here. It's worth the fight to find it.
I had no idea he prepared a duet for us. That was great. Okay, come next week to find out what the music will be like. It's gonna be fun. So this week, as we go out, as we depart, you will find on the back of your Sunday paper, on the bottom right, there's this QR code, sort of an inspiration and invitation for you in a practice of rest. We're doing these weekly blog posts with some resources and also an invitation for you to try on a practice. And so this week, what the practice looks like is finding a sit spot. Have you ever heard of a sit spot? You got a sit spot? That's great. So a sit spot, this is new to me, a sit spot is a place with access to nature. Somewhere in nature, maybe a favorite perch on your front porch, maybe a bench in a park, maybe it's a trail that you run on or walk on, and just to take like 5 minutes even, and just spend some time there and engage all of your senses. See what you can see. Notice some patterns. Spend time there. Maybe it's every day. Maybe it's a couple times during the week. But to find patterns of what do you notice? What's there? What birds? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What can you touch? What do you notice? And to really engage the senses. And I would encourage you as you try this, if you so choose to try this, to really tune in instead of zoning out in these places. All right? That's the challenge that I'm giving myself. Tune in, don't zone out. And then if you'd be so kind and inspired, we would love to hear from you too. So you'll find on that blog post following the QR code, you'll find a link to send an audio, like a voice recording, because we want to hear from you. Like what was that like to try? What did you notice in yourself or around you? Because I think the best thing we can do is to learn from one another. So, as we go, I would encourage you to give that a little thought. Where might be your sit spot? And then on the way out over here, we've got these cards. We used these at camp in the past, and they're like different trees, and on the back there's wisdom from each tree, and there's a question and kind of a prompt to think about or journal about if that's something that's helpful for you in your own practice. So feel free to take one of these on your way out. And anything else for the good of the order? Next week. Oh, thank you. So next week, we're going to talk about delight, and Melissa's going to be sharing the message on delight as a possibility of Sabbath. And as a part of that, we are going to have a party. We're going to take delight, and we're going to have a party, and to use that time to thank all of our volunteers, all the ways that so many people make Fabric happen. And so we're going to celebrate you. There's going to be games, there's going to be fun, there's going to be treats, there's all the fun stuff. So next week, regular time, 10:30, and then we'll party afterwards. All right? With that, thanks for being here. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and hopefully the sun comes out so you can go bask on a log or wherever you bask. Have a great day.
Well, threadbare with patches and pain from cuts that came, mistakes been made. Oh. Life looks good to you, the highlights pristine, but you only know what you see, oh. 'Cause it holds together, feels like it all spit and safety pins. Well, ragamuffins' robes or emperor's new clothes, is anything there at all? Well, I know you and you know me. We've been living our lives so carefully, oh, trying to hold it all together. Feels like it all holds together. All holds together with spit and safety pins. At the end of your rope, on the edge of a blade, hold it together. Who wants to live that way? Rather burst at the seams and go out in a blaze, but it's just another day. Does it have to feel like this when you're standing in the wind? Like it all holds together with spit and safety pins.